By the way, have you started working on your coaching like vocabulary, your coaching buzzwords, because they all have them. I got a few you should use, but for next year, just to get used to it.
Okay, let's do it.
I mean, like downhill, you get your space and pace. You've got vibes. I've never used vibes in an actual sentence. You got a good one. Say no to drugs. You could say to all that stuff. So
stay off the streets.
Yeah, stay off the streets. I mean, you got your whole vocabulary deal going?
Not yet. I think what the fuck might be used a lot early on.
Yeah.
I might have to tweak that one a little bit. Welcome to Rogue Bogues, another episode of the basketball series. Myself, Mike, featuring Trent every now and then. Pro decided to join us. He was going to break my balls as soon as he joined the podcast because I sent the run sheet 6 minutes before, and then he could not figure out how to click the join button that was the big blue join button for his Zoom call. But we're all good now.
Bogues, it's a new feature. Never had to do that before, ever. So I don't know if you just cheaped out on, knowing your frugal ways. I don't know if you just cheaped up on the level from the platinum to the bronze or to save that extra eight shingles a month. But I don't know. I had no idea. I'll take it though, Bogues. Don't worry about
it. So good. So Pro was going to rail me for the sheet. So I was waiting to get on this call because I sent the run sheet. I actually left it on my other computer, so I had to retype it. But he was going to rail me. I was waiting to jump online. Text us, where are you guys? You guys are late. What's going on? Sends a screenshot of him waiting with a big blue join button that hadn't been clicked. It's just all time fuckery. Like, it's awesome. It's so good.
I mean, what are you gonna do? The farewell tour is definitely coming into the fucking station.
Just take the L. Take the L this week, Pro. That's bad.
No doubt.
It's all the karma from you railing me last week. So unlucky. Let's get into it. Team of the week. Who you got?
Oh, Indiana Pacers for sure, man.
Oh,
They're killing everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now 4-0 this week. I mean, playing really well. They had a thing. Did you see that thing with
fight?
I think Turner's sister or something like that.
Oh, she collapsed during the game or something? Fainted?
Yeah, something like that. I read. That's terrible, man. Terrible. But yeah. Anyway, I just read about that today. But no, they're playing really well. And just those guys are an offensive machine with Halliburton, without, he's been up and down this year, but like everyone just sort of stepping up. Saw Mathurin had like a 30-point game. Those guys they just play well. They're a well-oiled machine offensively, and they're definitely making a run in the East. Just sort of solidifying seeding. I think right now, what are they, fourth? Them in Indiana and them in Milwaukee is sort of neck and neck, but I think they beat Dallas, Brooklyn twice, and I forgot who else they beat, but Carlisle's got them going pretty well.
Brooklyn twice, Minnesota, and then Dallas, Brooklyn.
Minnesota.
So not the best teams, but four straight. By the way, did you see that game where the Halliburton hit? Who was it against? From the corner where you got fouled, Milwaukee, I think. It's a hell of a play. Mm-hmm. I jotted that one down.
Mike Weiner drew it up. I think Mike.
They've run it before. And missed. They've run that play before and missed the shot.
The football.
Yeah, it's great.
Football type play. Yeah. Mike Weiner is one of the brightest offensive dudes I've ever met, the assistant coach there. And I know a couple other assistants sort of helped with that too, but Mike drew it up in the huddle, and they won. That was a big time play. So yeah, I mean, look, you could have done Houston, definitely could have done Houston, Oklahoma City. I mean, there's a bunch of teams you could have threw in there, but I thought that, give it to a small market team, and one, they're trying to bust ass and maybe trying to even get to that third seed. But right now they're sitting in fourth at 15 games back. They're playing pretty good basketball right now.
Yeah, I've got. I went with Houston just because they're playing really, really good basketball right now. They're just it just seems to be in sync for them. They've won 9 straight, 9-1 in their last 10. And they've beaten some good teams along the way. That's probably why I've lent that way. But they are a solid squad. I mean, they're very, very deep. They've got a lot of different options. I mean, they've got Orlando, Phoenix. They have a bit of a cupcake schedule the last probably 3 to 4 weeks. Other candidate I actually had with the Chicago Bulls, Pro. I almost put them in. They've been balling since All-Star break. They're 7-3.
Yeah, they have.
7-3 in their last 10 with some big wins. They beat the Lakers in LA with LeBron and Luka. They at SAC they win. They lose a close one to Phoenix and a close one to Houston, but before that had a 4-game win streak as well. Orlando, Miami, Indiana, and Brooklyn. So they're playing good
Did they
basketball.
put up like 139 against the Lakers last night, didn't they?
146.
146.
Yeah, Josh Giddey had 8 steals in that game, which was wild. So was it 8 or 10? No, I think it was 8 steals. So playing really well, moving the ball well. But I'm going to go with Houston just based on, I think we had them in. I think I had them in earlier in the season, but just didn't see them being this good this fast. You always called them the AAU elite for a reason. Very young, still inexperienced, but Ime's doing a fantastic job there, man. They're playing really good basketball. They've got a good mix of athleticism, blended in with toughness, blended in with rugged guys that can hit someone. They've got some scoring on the wings, so I think they play a really well-balanced style. They can go deep if they need to, and our guy Jock Landale's there, obviously. But they're playing real good basketball. They're second right now in the West. They're 12 games behind Oklahoma. They're not getting the 1 seed, but they'll likely be a 2-3 seed. I don't see them falling to 4. I think the Lakers are going to be up and down for the rest of the season to an extent. I just think they've got a pretty tough schedule to finish the season out. Memphis has also been struggling a little bit, but and Golden State in the 6. So the Houston Rockets get mine, bro.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's been playing really well. They got a tough group. They could score. They were missing Van Vliet for a while. He's finally back. And they just they've been really coasting to victories, man. They're just tough. They do, they got Dylan Brooks, just a tough guy, just, could play defense and just sort of bring it to you. Jalen Green's obviously the star as far as on the wing and perimeter scorer up, could really put up points. And Şengün is obviously, steady 19 and 10. The one thing they do lack, Bogues, is they do lack like playmakers off the dribble. Like, Van Vliet's more of a set it up, get it back, and make
He's
big
hot or
shots
cold
and
too.
make big
He's
plays.
hot or cold with that.
Yeah, but not really a playmaker. They don't get easy baskets. And I'm not trying to nitpick on those guys because they are playing at a high level without question. Amen Thompson has really made a huge step in his development for sure from last year to this year. I mean, he's a guy that could really straight line drive you. Obviously, what he could do defensively and athletic, with his athletic ability, but. Their bench, their second unit, like I said, not a lot of playmaking right there, not a lot of basketball IQ as far as like get guys easy looks, but they just smash it down your throat. They just put their head down, get to the rim. Not great shooting, but like they're just tough. They just got tough guys. They play hard. They're very, very impressive. Memphis, they had Memphis's number. Memphis sort of went away from that style a little bit with like running really low number pick and rolls, and they sort of faulted it the last couple of weeks. So they've been playing it up and down, but Houston's been really consistent over the last month or so.
Yeah, this is where you kind of want to get that little bit of a trajectory. It's interesting because really good teams that I've been a part of. Sometimes when I joined Golden State for that last run, March/April was always a grind. It was just a matter of box ticking these wins or losses. We didn't really care. It was kind of like just get to the playoffs healthy. But I think there's something to be said about having a little oomph and momentum coming from the regular season into a playoff series. I think confidence-wise and just momentum can give you a little bit of an edge going into a playoff series. So I like the fact that they're still pressing, even though they're trying to obviously hold on to a 2 seed if they can and get one of those playing teams. But they're in a good spot. Your weak team, Pro.
Bogues, what do you got for weak team? I didn't even do a weak team this week.
I have a coin flip between Cleveland and New York. Now, New York...
Oh, I'm sorry. I did take New York because they lost to Charlotte and they lost to someone else. That's right. New York was going to be my team.
Yeah, they do.
I apologize, but go ahead.
They are without Brunson. So obviously that makes a pretty huge difference. One of their best players, but they just looked clunky at times. Just don't think that they're in the dog days of the regular season, right? And that's what we just spoke about. So they lose to Charlotte, they lost to San Antonio, they got by Miami, then they lost to Golden State. So they've had a bit of a horror week as far as all that goes. Kind of the week before, they lost to Golden State, LA, and the Clippers in a 3-game stretch, then beating Sacramento and Portland. They haven't really beaten anyone good over the last course of probably since Memphis on the 28th of February. That's how long it's been since they've been beaten a really good team. They beat Washington last night. They beat Miami the week before. Portland and Sac were their other wins, and then Miami again. So Memphis was their last big win. Cleveland also, for a team that's dominating so much, they've lost 4 straight. I think they got a win yesterday. Let me just check that to even it out. But they've also struggled. So I think both of them could be in the mix. I think they both kind of they won yesterday. Cleveland did, but yeah, they're just a bit clunky. And I think of both those teams, they're on the top of their respective conferences. I wouldn't say they're getting bored, but it's the dog days of the season right now. It's making sure they get healthy and are raring, once mid-April comes. But no panic stations by my weak teams whatsoever. I think Cleveland's going to be fine. I think New York's going to be fine, but just not playing as probably well as they would have liked. And a bit of frustration in New York too. Thibs and Josh Hart get into it, and I think they're fiery guys, and I think they're like that. But Josh Hart was. Who were they playing, Pro? I can't remember who it was, but whoever it was playing a zone, and Josh messed up a couple of plays, ran to the wrong spots, and then Thibs basically said, run their F and play. You're not in the right spots. They got into it a little bit, but both those teams will be okay, but they're struggling a little bit right now.
Yeah, the Cleveland thing, it is what it is. They got a pretty good lead over Boston, sort of coming down the stretch. The New York thing has a little legs to it because remember last week Bridges came out in the media and started complaining about minutes, which is very interesting for a guy, that's supposed to be an Iron Man playing all these straight games and now complaining, which is weird to me. I understand like this whole Tibbs thing with not playing guys and everybody wants to sort of throw on it, especially if they start losing some games. The first thing they do is go to the, Tibbs plays guys too many minutes. But I've never seen an elite player in my life complain about playing too many minutes. And he goes to complain in the media about it, some meeting that they had to talk about it. Then Tibbs basically, said that meeting really never happened. Then you get the Josh Hart thing happening. Look, they're losing Brunson. Brunson's, besides Towns, Brunson's like their only really good offensive player. Bridges is up and down, shooting the ball, scoring. He's not really a guy you could depend on scoring. I mean, obviously his defense and, playing hard, straight line drives, cutting, and what he does off the ball. And those guys play hard collectively. But without Brunson, Brunson really puts the motor in his scoring. He's upwards almost 30 points a game. I think he's at around 26. So, I mean, without Brunson, the offense is clunky. You got, that whole Hart thing in Tibbs. I saw that happen. Look, Tibbs is a guy in Boston. He would have like 200-page reports printed out and sent to him from some service on every game, like every play teams would run, every play they should run, defensive stats. I mean, the guy's like the Bill Belichick of the NBA as far as preparation. So I could see him getting pissed, especially, without Brunson. They're struggling a little bit. He's probably tired of it. And then you got Josh Hart not doing what he's supposed to do. And then you got that Bridges thing a few days before that. So, yeah, I mean, that could snowball a little bit, especially if they go short-sighted in the playoffs. I'm not saying Tibbs has anything to worry about, but those things, those little whispers and those little moments can definitely roll on you. So, hopefully, I mean, they'll right the ship, especially if Brunson comes back close to full strength by the first round of the playoffs. They'll be all right. But right now, they're dealing with a little shit right now.
Yeah, they are. They'll get through it, but they can't afford to have these kinds of not distractions, but issues going on leading into a playoff series where they're probably the best suited to at least challenge Boston to try to get out of that conference finals into the finals from the East. But Boston, I think, is still, even though they're 2 seed, still a heavy favorite in most people's eyes.
Sure.
All right, moving on to some news. So Kyrie's back in the news for a bunch of different reasons. He has spoken about, which this is what's weird about the Kyrie stuff. Like this was a rant of his that he did on a podcast, which I was like agreeing, and then I was like, oh, no, you've lost me. But the part that I agree with, he was talking about the fact that these older players, former players, sound so bitter and hating on younger guys because they're making so much money. And I think he has a point. I think it's definitely an issue. I think I will never, would I have liked to have earned what was earned today back when I played? Of course. But when I earned what I earned, there was a generation before me that didn't earn that. Like, it's just the way it goes, right? So he has a point where some of these older guys are jealous of the fact that, some of these, we've spoken about it. Like a mediocre player today is making $10 to $15 million, right? Maybe 20 on an okay team, right? Whereas back in the day, back when I played, 20 was kind of your max guys. So that's changed now to 50, 60. So there is a bit of bitterness from those older guys, and Kyrie made a great point with that. They need to just, every generation needs to respect the previous, but then you got to, the previous generation also needs to respect the next generation. I think there's a bit of an imbalance there, and you can see the ones in the media that are bitter about it. There's no doubt about that. But then he finishes it off with speaking about, the culture of the NBA and black culture and that kind of stuff, and too many white commentators, and kind of lost me on a tangent that it's racism and that needs to be fixed. And you're kind of like, well, I don't understand the premise of all that. He was alluding to the fact that if it's white commentators, it's more slanted to a white angle and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that's debatable for most people. I just didn't think you need to go there. When he made such a good point, and I was like, Team Kyrie, great point, respect. Right. And then the end of it killed me, pro. But I guess we'll see more of these with Kyrie being hurt. And I do like people that you can agree with and disagree with on their opinions. I like the fact that he does have some opinions I don't agree with, and he has some opinions that I do. And I think that's rather than just towing the line, but at times he does lose myself and many other people with kind of the racism stuff and all that kind of stuff. I think sometimes just gets a bit over the line, pro.
Yeah, I think it's very normal very normal for behavior for the older generation to be jealous of what these guys are making. I mean, the league is, made off the backs of the players that played in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And, even in the 80s and early 90s, when you had guys that are all-star level players making $3 or $4 million a year, maybe you made like 15 your whole career. And then you see guys that are very below average making 15, 20 million. That's totally normal, and I get it. And, you can't, in my opinion, it's hard to comment about those guys when you're not in their shoes. When you're making $30 million a year and you say, well, they're just jealous. Well, it's hard when you're making 30 and then the next generation is going to make 60 or 70. Well, you made 30 and you're set for the rest of your life. When you make like 11 million for your whole career, you should be set for your whole life. But a lot of times, sometimes that's not the case. But I could see why those guys should feel the way they feel about it, especially how extravagant and how big the money is. Now, as far as the racist comments things, I mean, you don't really have much legs to stand on in today's society. Mark Jones, you got Mark Jones, you got Richard Jefferson, you got Perkins, you've got, most of the ESPN in-game. I mean, Stephen A. Smith, you've got countless African-American people represented in that. So, I mean,
not to mention the team broadcasters, right? I feel like there's generally a pretty good balance with most teams.
Now, there's definitely now, like the last 5 or 6 years, they've really made sure to try to include that, that part of it into their broadcasts and commentators and things like that. Look, I don't think anything's ever enough. So, if you get to 50%, why isn't there 60%? If you get to 60, why isn't there 7? Like, it's never going to be enough. So when people just throw the race card in things like this, I tend to just to like roll my eyes at it, just because if you have a great point, like you brought up with the, even though I don't really agree with it all the time, I think that like with the, with the older players complaining, they have a good reason to. But I understand his point. His point's valid. But that once you start throwing the race thing, you lose me, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, in our whole society of trying to include, as many races and genders as possible. Genders, yeah, like there's 18 of them. Like, as many we could get. I mean,
you're canceled for that, bro.
Yeah.
There's more than 18. But anyway, keep going.
Don't worry, we're canceled anyway, so we're worried. So yeah, thanks for that, Bogues, by the way. But go ahead, we could go with it.
Yeah, it's just it is what it is. I think it's I'm big on not hiring people based on physical attributes or beliefs or religion or whatever, or gender. I try to hire the best possible person. And sometimes it ends up being more of one attribute than the other, or vice versa. And that's just the way life goes, right? Like, I think as soon as you start looking at skin color, religion, you know, what kind of food someone eats, you know, I'm not a fan of it. I understand why it's there, and I understand historically why it's now infiltrated society. I feel like it's balanced. It's getting away from that again. At least in the US, it is. Australia is still a little bit behind that, but I think it should always be the best person for the job, in my opinion. But that's controversial these days, pro. So we just got to tread cautiously with that one. You don't want to always give the job to the best person. You get in trouble doing that. The Boston Celtics have sold for $6.1 billion, pro. Bill Chisholm is the purchaser. He's a co-founder and managing partner of Symphony Technology Group, a private equity firm. What else out there somewhere? Know much about him? Read much about him? Heard much about him?
Bogues, nobody knows anything about him. He's really has not much of a digital footprint.
Smart man.
This sale has been going on for the last few months as far as trying to get names. You've heard all types of names of people throw their hat in the ring on this thing. It is interesting. They bought the team. Wick Grossbeck and his group bought the team, back in 2003 for about $360 million. And at the time, his dad had the money, put up. I forgot his stake in the team, with the percentage they actually owned. Maybe it was upwards of a 35 to 40%. But they had a bunch of owners. They had about 30 to 35 owners. They had like three or four of the majority, and then a bunch of other people throwing in for like $1 million a piece. What was interesting in this, folks, is the minority owner, Steve Pagliuca, who's big in Bain Capital, another venture capital firm in Boston. He owns, they don't say how much he owns. I've heard he owns upwards of about 20%. And then he bought another minority stake in the team a few years back, so he's upwards of almost 30%. He put up a group, lost out, and this guy, they've been hand in hand with this team since they took it over. I was very shocked that because he put out a post saying that, he was upset about not getting the team, but his group is fully funded. Unlike, he made it sound like this guy isn't fully funded yet, fully financed with the whole $6.1 billion. And he's basically saying, look, if the financing falls through, which a lot of times this stuff happens more than it doesn't, as far as the owners like saying they're going to buy a team and then it just falls apart. But he says, look, I've got this thing fully financed, unlike this group, and he's ready to pick up the pieces. But unless that, because the dad was the one who forced the sale from Wick Grossbeck, and now Wick Grossbeck is still going to run the team for 5 years. That's the deal that any owner's got to have with the team. But they've got a lot of issues too with money, with as far as their roster and the money that they're going to have to spend on luxury tax and aprons and things like that. But no, there's no real footprint in this guy. It was a little bit weird that they won the bid, and I'm just wondering why they didn't just give it to the minority owner that has this big group of people that, that they could have just carried the legacy on.
Well, the NBA doesn't generally like big groups, right? When you have numerous different owners in a group, because there can be a lot of issues with that. They like to have a big dog and then everybody else. But, I mean, Boston were the one team, I think about 4 or 5 months ago, that complained about they won a championship and lost money on their P&L, right? Because of the penalties of them having to pay guys they drafted and then making some trades. They just but then they also did make a play for Drew and Derek White, which is there, and Al Horford, right? They're all on big salaries. So, but they have complained, and you just wonder how that's going to change. We saw it with Dallas as well. Potentially, that was rumored as to why the Luka deal happened. They didn't want to go into that apron, but it will be interesting. But not a bad investment. 20x on your money, in 15, 20 years. So on 300 million, it turns into 6 billion.
And they don't own their own building.
Yeah,
the hockey team owns the buildings, which is very interesting.
Which is wild. Yeah, most teams with the inflated inflations own their own building, right? It's a very valid point.
Yep.
So But yeah, I mean, it sets a bar in the NBA. What else do we have? So Joe Ingles, he gets to start in front of his son, which is a great story. As far as just humanitarian type stuff, being a human being, great job by Finch. So for those not familiar, Joe's family live out in Orlando, son autistic. They based them out there. Obviously a better place to live for kids than Minnesota. No offense to people out there in Minnesota, but it is what it is. And he had come out to a game in Minnesota with his wife Renee and the kids and the family, and don't know who approached who or how that all happened, but Finch, basically had said, look, we're going to start you because your son hasn't, your son's going to see you play. His son hasn't had a chance to come to many basketball games because of the issues that he has that he's dealing with. So got to see his father play, which I assume, I'm not retiring him, but I assume would probably be the last time in the NBA, the last season in the NBA as a player. It just seems like the writing's on the wall. If this kind of things happened, I think Joe's probably had that conversation, if I'm guessing, saying, hey, this is going to be my last season. I'd appreciate it if my son could see me play. A great gesture. Didn't manage to score, didn't manage to turn the stat sheet, which is unfortunate. Would have been nice for his son to see him whack down one of those patented Joe Ingles threes and go into the face of the defender who was guarding him and give him a mouthful, but that didn't happen. But yeah, you like to see these kind of things in the grind of a season. It's you only played 7-8 minutes, but good to see Minnesota show a human side, pro.
Yeah, it just goes to show you that, there is a human side of the NBA. You don't see it often, but you do see it from time to time. It goes to show you how much that he probably means to that team, that organization, and Finch. And, it's great gesture to do that. And, I wish him the best on everything that's going down, down the pike. But it's great. It's an unbelievable opportunity for your son to be able to watch you play and can remember, seeing his dad play in an NBA game. So that's awesome. That was, I read that a couple of days ago, and I thought that was really cool.
Really cool. So, and it does leave the question on what Joe does. Last time I spoke to him, which was a long time ago, he's a little bit big time now, Trent. You don't hear from old Joe very often. I think he wants to stay in the US. Will he come back to the NBL and stretch out another year or two of pro basketball? Maybe like a lot of guys now thinking, can that get me to maybe another Olympics? Who knows what's in his mind? Does he want to continue on those old legs, or does he just say, you know what, like I've had a great international career. I've already done the NBL thing. I've already done the Europe thing. I'm going to just retire here out in Orlando for a bit and shut it down. So I'm interested to see what direction he goes at the end of this season.
I think it'll be interesting with a lot of guys that generation is kind of transitioning into the later stages of their career, what a lot of them do. I hope they come back to the NBL. I think it's only a positive. Obviously, it's up to their bodies and whether or not they can go through a 20-something game season, but like there's no negative, no matter what their output looks like, no matter what sort of player they look like, they're only going to grow the game if they come back and play a season or two. But it's a tough ask, especially with Joe and his family. Yeah,
and I know he wanted to stay in the US long term. I think there's just better. He seems to find a little bit better for resources and stuff for his children there. But yeah, I agree. I think Paddy's in the same boat. Not playing a lot. Writing's kind of on the wall with what he's going to do. Whether they come back and play in Australia, but time will tell, pro. We'll see if they continue on, but definitely a great career to this point. I'm not retiring him. He might maybe he wants to play next year in the NBA. I don't know, but it just seems like this, pro. I don't know how you feel about it. It seems like this could be the last year in the NBA for Joe.
Yeah, it's tough. It gets tougher and tougher at that age. When you're not playing a ton of minutes and you get that age and all these teams are trying to get younger, it's old. It takes you longer and longer sometimes to get your deal, to get to a team. I remember the last couple of years of like Juwan Howard. I remember training him in Chicago, where he went from like max deal to mid-level to the biannual stuff, and then then you're still working them out in September and October, and then getting late, to getting late deals, and then it just sort of it sort of shrinks down on you, and it's nobody really wants to say goodbye to it, but sometimes it's just time. I don't know if that's time for him. I know it's going to be tough. Like I said, with all these teams trying to go younger, the whole locker room veteran thing isn't as big a thing as it used to be. They're not really seeking out those guys and trying to gobble them up. Some teams would have one or two of those guys. So, I mean, I'm sure there's a team that, they're impressed with him as far as what he does with his professionalism and things. But yeah, it's tough. I never want to say anybody should retire because, if you have that opportunity, plus with the money, with these minimum contracts, what they're worth these days, upwards of almost $3 million. I mean, you might as well throw your hat in the ring as long as you can.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, maybe he wants to get another year or two out, but it just seems like this kind of storm of doing that with his kids to watch him play. It almost feels like, is it the one last time your kid's going to see you in the NBA in an NBA jersey? It does seem that way. I could be completely off the reservation here, but time will tell. But we'd definitely like to see him in the NBL down the track. And finally, the long-awaited Michael Beasley, Lance Stephenson one-on-one pro. Everyone's been waiting for this one. This has been, something talked about for years. We couldn't wait till this was going to happen. It's happening, pro. No surprises here. It's $100K. It's happening before. Is it before that tournament? What is that tournament? Is it before that?
The basketball tournament, TBT.
Yeah, is it during some of that? Because they said they then go on to coach as well. Some games, but anyway, it's a one-on-one battle for $100K, pro. Are you going to be tuning into that one?
No, but I'm asking. I wonder who's going to be paying the money, because if it's like the other player pays the other player, I mean, if either one of those guys would throw me $100,000 in cash, I'd still ask for ID. I wouldn't really trust it coming out of either one of those things, and I bet those checks either one of those checks would bounce as bigger than any basketball that you've ever done. So,
well, I don't think it's a bet, bro. I think it's
like a sponsor.
It's sponsors for the money up. I would agree with you.
Yeah,
some guy, one of them would lose the game, and you just see like the cartoon, the smoke leaving the building. You wouldn't see him again.
Yeah.
So I think it's all done by a sponsor. I think yeah.
I'd rather watch Rosie O'Donnell do jumping jacks in a live feed than fucking watch that bullshit, to be honest with you. But go ahead.
That's a good one, bro. Yeah, but no, I'm not going to be watching it. All-Star game, please bring a one-on-one competition. I would watch that. I would tune in for the one-on-one. I think that would be something cool to see. All your best one-on-one players just going at it. Doesn't have to be superstars, but like an SGA. Who else would you have in there for a one-on-one comp? Like Jordan Clarkson, I think, would be a six-man one-on-one candidate.
Clarkson would be good. Durant would be good.
LeBron, I don't know about LeBron. LeBron needs a screen and roll these days.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Luka
Kyrie would be good if healthy.
Kyrie would be awesome.
Luka would be good. Edwards, awesome. Maybe throw Edwards in there. Steph, throw Steph in there.
Yeah.
Book.
Yeah.
Book is a good one as well.
And then
there you go.
What are the rules? Are you going like 3 dribbles?
That's what I mean. Because if you throw Zion in there with that group, you're like, we just back down. I don't know. You'd probably have to do. You'd probably do spots and a 10-second shot clock, probably instead of dribbles. You'd do like a 10-second shot clock or something. So someone throws it to you.
I mean, the guys like to do 5 seconds, and they'll probably want to do more. You know those guys who play one-on-one after practice. They go like 5 spots to go 5 seconds.
Yeah,
I would probably say 7 or 8.
Yeah,
but like Jason Tatum would be great in that, and I think you could get. I mean, that would be a really good deal to me. That would be really good. I don't know if they would, just because of the worry about injury. But
not so much injury; it's more the shock value.
I think it would be great.
Guys would be afraid of losing to someone else. It's more that it's just like, well, I just think it'd be great. I don't think the injury is as bad because it's not. You don't have help defenders. You don't have all that stuff. So, it'd be cool to do like 4 forwards or bigs and 4 guards and just go at it, and just see the bigs try to back them down for 7 seconds and guards. It'd be quite funny to watch. So I would tune in for that. I think it'd be great. And I reckon I think that is a potential fix for the All-Star game that would get someone like myself to actually tune into it. All right, useful, useless, pro. I'm going to give you a quiz again for this one.
Sure.
So, as of today, it's March Madness. NBA.com did this, which is pretty cool. As of today, this NBA season, which college has the most active NBA players? Who is number 1?
Kentucky?
Yes, Kentucky. You got it. All right, number 2.
Oh, man. North Carolina.
Is North Carolina? They're not. North Carolina's not in the top 11, funnily enough,
Damn.
Surprises
they're
me.
up
It's
there. Although they haven't been good in a while. Duke?
Their rivals, yes. Duke is 2. UCLA 3. Arizona 4. Arkansas 11.
Well, the problem with that is Holiday had like 18 fucking brothers that played in the NBA, and they all went to fucking UCLA. So I think that
helps.
number spiked a little bit, like fucking, like Barry Bonds' steroid rate.
Yeah, we
back
got
in
Westbrook.
the
They
early
got
2000s.
Love's still there. But yeah, all the holidays.
The 18 holidays.
All the holidays are still there. Gonzaga 6, Kansas 7, USC 11, Michigan 9, Texas 10, and Baylor 10. So no North Carolina.
Folks, there's more holidays in the NBA than a fifth grader on his calendar during the year. So every fucking team's got a holiday. It seems like.
Oh, they're the most brothers. They might be the most brothers ever, right? At one time,
No doubt about
Has
it.
to be, right?
Yeah, their DNA should be selling. Their DNA should be selling for $2.2 million an ounce. Let me tell you.
What you got, Trey?
I think one of them's out. I think it's just Drew and the youngest, Aaron. I think the middle one is not in the league right now, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah.
They all touched. They all.
Oh, at one point in time, all
No,
three
Justin
of them,
was right. Justin's still on a roster, isn't he?
I don't think so.
I play with Justin.
Yeah.
There's 4, right?
There's a holiday on Houston. There's a holiday, obviously,
Aaron,
Drew.
Yeah, Aaron Holiday's on Houston, Drew Boston, obviously. I think Justin, the last year or two, fell out. But at one point in time, all three were playing all for an NBA team.
Yeah, there's only 2 active, bro. Way to go. You're wrong. Good job, Trent. Way to get him.
Trent's never mistaken, by the way.
I just quickly chucked in the
He's
NBA,
never mistaken.
NBA.com players, holiday, only 2, bro. So that's all good. All right. Quiz for you, pro. Who's the only player in NBA history with 25,000 points with under 1,000 threes made?
He's obviously active.
Oh, I can't say. No clues on this one.
25,000 points.
Over 25,000 points.
Yeah.
With
less than 1,000 3-pointers made. Larry Bird.
No, DeMar DeRozan. 604 threes made only, pro, which is in today's day and era to get to 25K without shooting a shitload of threes is pretty hard. So just goes back. We've touched on that a fair bit, but that he just passed 25,000 last week. So good on him. Under 1,000 threes. Aussies of the week, I'm going to give it to both Giddey and Dyson this week, just because Giddey's numbers were outrageous. Dyson's would generally have won it if Giddey's weren't outrageous. Giddey only played 2 games. But both their teams are 7-3 in their last 10 and playing well. So Giddey with a monster line these last 2 games, 18.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, 12 assists and 5 steals per game. And Dyson, 16 points, 8 rebounds, 6.6 assists and 3.6 steals a game. So I'm going to give them both a point each. Dyson is at 6, Giddey is at 9. We've got basically Dyson needs to run the next 3 weeks out with wins. Otherwise, it's Giddey's trophy. We'll send him some apparel that we don't have, pro. Some Rogue Bogues apparel that we don't have. But they're
yeah, I mean, and plus it's going extinct too. That would have been
price is
flipped
going
in
up.
value. That would have been pretty good.
It's like bad art.
That would have been.
Once they die,
That would have been like
really goes up.
that would have been like a Bogues coin, right?
Yeah, shit coin. Fact or fake news? I got one for you, pro.
Oh fuck!
I have one
How
for you
about
this week.
that? Go ahead.
'Cause I assume you're just about to make one up, and then it's going to take you
None, absolutely
45
not.
seconds
Bogues.
to explain
Absolutely
it.
Not. Well, Bogues, by the way, have you started working on your coaching like vocabulary, your coaching buzzwords, because they all have them. I got a few you should use, but for next year, just to get used to it.
Okay, let's do it.
I mean,
What do you
like downhill, you get your space and pace. You've got vibes. I've never used vibes in an actual sentence. You got a good one. Say no to drugs. You could say to all that stuff. So
stay off the streets.
Stay off the streets. I mean, you got your whole vocabulary deal going.
Not yet. I think what the fuck might be used a lot early on.
Yeah.
I might have to tweak that one a little bit.
Sweet.
Sub.
Yeah.
Nah.
All right. I just want to know.
Nah, not yet. I don't yet, but I definitely, it's going to be, if you want to run, get to space. You got to run.
Yeah.
If you want to run, get to space.
Space.
Pass
That's
it.
all they yell.
Kick your head.
Folks, you can make $500,000 a year in the NBA. You could go to the NBA, Bogues, as an assistant, right? All you got to do is get like a franchise, one of the best shooters of all time,
Working
pass him
out.
the ball, and take credit for all this success. Bogues, I'm telling you, you could make millions doing it. There's plenty of people doing it.
Where's it? I mean, I get it from a grifting money point of view. I don't need money at this point. That's why I just think I enjoy. There's not like I think the best thing after winning a championship as a team is developing a guy from an 11th spot to a starter as a coach that you can do, right? As an assistant coach or a coach, other than winning, there's nothing that I'd be more proud of like that kid that was 20, he was the 11th man, could barely run in a straight line. 3 years later, he's starting for an NBL team or an NBA team or whatever. That, I think, is a true accomplishment of a coach. And that's something that you've affected a life, you've affected a player, you know? So I like that challenge almost as much as I love the day-to-day chess of winning and scouting and all that, but like trying to develop a kid that's been doubted or you see they have the tools and they just need a bit of help. That's what coaching's about as well.
Well, just look, little advice on the whole development thing. I think that the guys that are really good at development could move a bunch of 10s, 11s, and 12s to 5, 6, 7. Like that is, if you could do that every year where you can move multiple 9s to 5s and or 9th guy, 10th guy to 7, that's great development. And your team doesn't have to overspend and you could really see a lot of great results with your development. Everyone thinks that you need to turn everybody into Durant, Kobe, Jordan. Like that stuff comes once every
Unicorns,
whatever.
the unicorns.
Even in your league, like franchise players, like it's almost impossible. But if you can really spend a lot of time on your 9, 10, 11 and moving them up 4 or 5 spots, you'll be doing all right.
Yeah, I agree. And that's part of the fun and the challenge. So
so you have one for me, Bogues.
I do. Okay, so Anthony Davis is reported to be back within the next game or so from his groin strain. They are currently in 11th. They are tied with Phoenix, exact same record, 34 and 37. Sacramento's in a free fall. They're 9, and they're 1.5 games. Those two teams are 1.5 games behind the 9th spot. Fact or fake news, the Dallas Mavericks make the 10 with Anthony Davis back.
Fake news.
Fake news, okay.
Fake news. I think that they need guard play and scoring, and without Luka, without Kyrie, without Quentin Grimes, they don't really have that. I mean Clay, but Clay doesn't really handle the ball like that. I just don't think
Quentin Grimes, the guy we forgot,
the
guy we forgot in that trade.
Yeah, Quentin Grimes. How about that? That fucking guy's like averaging 24.5 a game. I mean, can it get any worse for Dallas? I mean, anybody they cut turns into Wilt fucking Chamberlain.
It's
everybody
wild.
they acquire just gets hurt. I mean, it's not,
You laugh.
it's just
you
a
laugh. The same
curse
thing that makes you laugh,
right now.
same thing that makes you cry. But I'm going to go. There's an asterisk on my fact that they will, if Anthony Davis stays healthy, they will make the team.
Okay.
Because Sabonis is out. They don't know. They're saying he could be back sooner rather than later. It's not as bad as, but he's out. He's a big out for the Kings. Phoenix, you just don't know what you get. They are playing a little bit better. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They've won 3 straight, but they can just implode on themselves like to the flick of a switch. And I think they do need some guard play. Dinwiddie's playing okay. I think they might grind out a 10 or a 9. So I'm gonna, if Anthony Davis remains on the roster healthy till the end of the season. So
And you think Portland's totally out?
Yeah, Portland's playing a little bit better, but I think they have no incentive to try to get in there. I think if they stay to the bottom side, they can maybe they can sneak 13 off San Antonio if the tank really fires up and get in that top 5 for the lottery picks. So I think no Portland. I think it's Dallas. Dallas, Phoenix, or Sacramento will be in that 8, 9, 10 share. Obviously, Minnesota's pretty safe in 8. They're 5 games ahead of 9. So it's the 9, 10, 11. 2 spots are available between those teams. I think it will be Dallas, and I think if I have to call it, I think Sacramento will fall out.
Yeah, I mean, without Sabonis, he's out for 10 days. That was 3 days ago. Of course, he's on my fantasy team as well. I got worse luck than fucking. I got way worse luck than Nico Harrison does being a GM, man. I'm telling you, every fucking guy, Paul George, him, fucking Luca was out for a while. I mean, anybody.
The best part was
anybody.
Cuban over the last week, which we didn't touch on, is distanced himself from. I had nothing to do with it. They didn't even consult me.
Yeah.
You somewhat can Cubes, but you hired those guys. You're not immune. I mean, you hired those guys. Like, you got to take some sort of, you're part of it, unfortunately.
I mean, you hired him, but I do believe that he would have done anything in his power.
I agree.
To
I agree with that.
to protect Luca. Yeah.
But by selling down a minority, that's one thing. And then you hired a crazy erratic dude, it seems like, who's done all these deals for Nike back in the day and whatnot, that just probably is just like, we're just moving this over there. What's the big deal? It's Air Max Jordan shoes, let's swap them over. Who cares? Like, ended up being Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis, right? So, but we'll watch that space. What do you got?
All right, Bogues. So everyone's talking Vegas. I was listening to Gilbert Arenas' podcast the other day. Cade Cunningham basically has most improved player sort of wrapped up in their eyes. Fact or fake news, you can make a case for Dyson Daniels winning most improved player in the NBA. I mean, ironically enough, an Australian guy. But, I mean, seeing what he did this year, you could make a case over Cade Cunningham for most improved player. Fact or fake news?
You could make a case for it, fact, but I think he's going to get Defensive Player of the Year, which then leads me to believe it's Brown likely gets 2 awards. I think he gets Defensive Player of the Year. Who else is in the most improved running?
Hold on, I had it.
Norman Powell
earlier. Norman Powell was in it.
Here we go. Tyler Hero, Thompson from Houston, Daniels, Jalen Williams, and Wembanyama. Okay.
Come on.
Yeah, Cade's a shoe. I think I love Dyson, and I think Dyson's improved a lot. But I think Cade, you're not taking away Cade. He's taken a massive jump this season, and they're winning games. Like, they're a tough team. Like, they're not an easy beat anymore.
Yeah, the winning games I could see like that going over the edge, but to me, like my only thing here with Daniels is that he was literally he was sort of trending to be out of the league in about 18 months from training camp opening day. Like, he was trending downward, traded, numbers weren't great, didn't shoot it great, to now one of the more elite players in elite defensive players in the last 3 or 4 years, and then just killing it compared to what he was doing the last couple of years. And nothing against him. The guy was doing all the right things. He just wasn't in a great spot as far as the role that he was doing, the production, the shooting, all that stuff was sort of, trending downward. And then this guy like becomes Oscar Robertson, Alvin Robertson, and fucking Michael Jordan with his steals all of a sudden, and the guy's taking the league by storm with his defensive play. With Cade Cunningham, my only thing, the winning is probably what the winning and in the other award where Dyson's probably going to seal it. But I mean, Cade went from like 23 to 25 points a game. So it wasn't like now that he got hurt and he missed a lot of time. But, to me, the jump is with the winning, not his play.
Yeah.
His play's been great. I mean, he's
and
been
without
a
Ivy, right?
really good player.
Like, without their other primary, without Ivy, right?
Without Ivy.
So
without Ivy,
and they're 40 and 32, man. Like, and people didn't have them in their 10. So
I definitely didn't.
I just think that they're tough. He's the head of the snake for them, and he's been on a tear. He's got some shit to him. He gets into it, guys. He's fiery. I just love the way he goes about it, and I think that's the numbers aren't a massive jump. You're right, but I think the winning it's not all him, but it's a lot. Take him out of that lineup. We saw how they play without him. They struggle a little bit. So I just, I think Dyson's definitely up there and playing had a hell of a season. The jump he's taken this season has been phenomenal, and Atlanta's playing some good basketball over the last 2-3 weeks. So, but yeah, the Vegas, like you said, Vegas is very rarely wrong, and he's a heavy favourite.
Have they got Mobley in there?
Yeah.
Or no?
No Mobley.
I feel like Mobley should probably get a shout as well. Like I think he's probably made some of the biggest jumps this year, and he's on the
he's been
number
really
one
good.
team in the East. So
Yeah, but
Is Mobley getting some steam for defensive player of the year?
I'm not sure he's
is
on
he
that
in the
one.
top 4 or 5? Somebody was saying that. I don't know if it's true or not. One of the shows I was listening to, they were
Yeah,
saying that
70
Mobley has a chance.
implying he's got a 73% win possibility for the Depoy Award. So
Mobley.
yeah,
Yeah,
What does Dyson have on that one?
I'll just find out.
107.
You got Bam, Dyson, Lou Dort, Rudy Gobert, Draymond Green, Jaren Jackson Jr., Mobley. They're the candidates. Oh, and then Thompson. Oh, that's most improved. Is that most improved? Thompson's in there as well. Oh, Zubats, Jalen Williams. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
good group.
I don't know if Mobley should win. I think we could just probably switch those two around. Give Dyson the Depoy and just give Mobley or Cade the most improved. I think. Is it funny with the Depoy Award how they can't give it to guards? It's like Marcus Smart won the guard award for the last 5 years, so now all the guards are out of question for the next couple of years. It's got to go to bigs.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. And just, obviously we'll touch on it later with voting for awards with the NBL stuff. But it's going to be tight. I think he's going to be tight for all of them. But I'd go with Cade, and then I'd go with Dyson for.
I can see that.
Especially
I can see that with the award
Wemby
thing.
out. Like once he was eliminated, I thought he was the biggest threat to Dyson. And probably get a lot of people went with Wemby. Once he was out, because he now doesn't play enough games, I don't think I don't think Mobley's. I think Dyson's. All-time steals record. Like it's just, and his thing isn't just steals and stats. Like you watch the way he guards, picks up full court. He makes life hell for their best scorer. Just has a tough night getting his 25 points. And he's made some key steals, some game-winning steals. He gets deflections. It just makes life hard for guys. So I think he's a shoo-in for it.
Yeah, him and Dort are really like fundamentally sound defensively. Like as much as you want to watch like, Kawhi Leonard or, Kobe or MJ with their footwork, you want to watch those guys, Marcus Smart and those two guys defensively, what those guys do, he's like Tony Allen was like, as far as getting steals, defensive presence, all that stuff. So pretty, Daniel's been really cool to watch. So, but you're right. The defensive award will probably knock him out of it.
I agree. All right, Pro. We won't see you next week because we're off next week. I've got to do a tour of Australia, so I'm on a plane all week. And we'll see everyone the week after Pro. Make sure when you join us in 2 weeks, you press the join button to join the video chat. And I'll send you the run sheet
since
a bit
this
earlier.
new fucking coaching job, man, you've been mailing this fucking thing in, man. You've been mailing this fucking thing in. It's it's unbelievable.
I've been on time 2 weeks in a row,
unbelievable.
Pro, unlike yourself. So try to be on track.
I've been here. I was here. Just didn't click the button, man. But seriously. So remember, space, pace, vibes, and definitely say no to drugs.
Family
right, folks.
family on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Family.
Family. Later.
Absolutely. Later.
I just finished on the NBL here, and what a couple of weeks! What a great grand final series! It's everything that you could imagine. As a neutral fan like I was really locked into watching them. Really excited for every game to come. We finished on United being up 2-1 with a home game 4, thinking that United's probably going to scratch through. 2 chances at it. Their home floor, they sputter in game 4. And they, just looked out of sorts in game 5. I think that you got to credit Illawarra. Froling goes down with an Achilles in game 4. Olbrich just absolutely phenomenal in game 4 and game 5. And Will Hickey just making an absolute mockery out of that United defense. So they kind of dared him to be you beat us and we'll live with it. And he did, and I think he got his confidence going. He's not the greatest 3-point shooter, but he knew his spots. I love what Tatum did in game 5. He put those probably didn't notice it. Hickey would push the pace, kick the ball in transition, and then he'd actually play out of the dunker spot. He'd actually played under the backboard, behind the backboard, and on a lot of drives, he was cutting behind Melbourne's head. He was making passes, and he was rebounding, getting key offensive rebounds. So he was huge for him. I feel like United, some will say let it slip. I think they did to an extent. That home game 4 was the one where they let it slip. but Illawarra took it from him. Illawarra wasn't given it; they took it, and they grinded out a really tough team with some champion players. I think United went to ISO ball throughout phases of Game 4 and Game 5, and that got them wins in Game 1 and 3. But the CG grenades from 3 feet out, they weren't falling for him. I think Daly made a lot of key shots for him early in the series. He kind of slowed a little bit towards the end. Ian Clark kept them alive in numerous games. They just couldn't find easy offense. And I think once it sputtered down, they couldn't find easy offense. They were getting stops for stretches. They just couldn't score. Couldn't put scoreboard pressure on. Illawarra was getting, a lot of key stops in a row, which took the pressure off their offense. They didn't have to score. So fantastic series, and I just think that some minor adjustments by Tatum in Game 5 were key. Love the fact that Ulbrich, they kept him on the bench, but he played big minutes. They kept Cal on the bench. He missed Game 4. They kept him on the bench for Game 5. I think that was great as well. I think Hickey does a great job of causing chaos with his pace. Harvey thrives in chaos and movement. Cal's a bit more of a slower, back you down, get to my spot. So I felt like it didn't fit well in that series when they were all on the court together. Once, and it wasn't probably by design. It happened accidentally. Ulbrich and Cal happened by accident because they got, there was an injury with Froling, so then Ulbrich's all of a sudden inserted out, different big to Froling, more mobile, a bit more active at the defensive end. And then you had Cal come off the bench because he had an injury. I wonder if they probably wouldn't have got to those changes without the injuries and without the, Cal sitting out a game. So, just phenomenal the way it all worked out, and Illawarra thoroughly deserved.
Yeah, no, we harped on it all season about their depth, but you really saw it in Game 4, just the fatigue. I think it got to halftime and the score was like 30 apiece.
Yeah.
It was the lowest scoring half of the year. So you could just see that, like, Hickey at no point did his engine slow at any point. Like, he was running full court. Even his team are lagging behind him, and he's just like dragging them up the court. And I think that was Illawarra's biggest strength the whole series, is that they just had so many guys that they could just go down to, give guys rest, etc. And even being hit by the injury bug, still have enough guys to rotate through. And like you look at like a United, if Lee goes down for them, like,
which he did for a stretch, and
they just have nothing to go to, right? So I think that's how Illawarra got this series done. I think you got to tip your cap to Tatum and the adjustments he made as well. But like you said, some of them kind of fell in his lap. But I just think overall the depth of Illawarra got this done, and that was most apparent in Game 4 at United's home. They should have closed the series out there, but just could see there's just no legs left, even
towards the end.
From everybody on that team defensively, like, there was just nothing left in the tank. And then you get down on the offensive end, and like, you're so tired from playing defense and running up and down with Hickey the whole game. It's just, you could just see by the third, fourth quarter of Game 4 that United were cooked, and I would have been surprised if they went into Illawarra in Game 5 and were able to grind out a win in front of that crowd.
Yeah, you saw it towards the end of Game 4, just the fatigue, and that was, that Illawarra, I guess when they kind of were on the losing end, it was a slower paced game, which didn't suit them, but they just continue to push the ball and continue to push, and they were the best team all season offensively with their pace of play because of that. And I think it did cause some problems for United. They are older bodies. Their 3 guards are all in their 4 guards actually are all in their 30s, mid 30s. Have had injury history. Illy with the concussions, he misses a game. Daly kind of broke down a little bit towards that Game 5, just because he just plays to exhaustion. Like, he's one of those guys. Clark's a bit older, and then CG as well, right? So it was just tough on them. And I know that they had the same demons the season before with Tassie, control of that series, lost it, and the season before in the semis against Tassie, they were up 1-0 and then lost that one. And it's kind of a similar pattern. They'd start out really well, and you're like, oh, United's got this, and then all of a sudden they let the other team back in just in a random Game 3 or Game 4, and then they get some life. And now we saw the series turn even in this one. So it will be interesting to see where both teams go from here. United now, obviously some aging guards. They'll probably need some youth. We know Dash Daniels is there. What's his role? Does he come in and play straight away? They got 4 guards, so I think it's highly unlikely they bring back Clark and Daly both, because they're both in their 30s. I think it's one or the other, if at all. Daly is out there in free agency. Clark the same. Illy, what does he do? I think he's contracted for another year, but the concussion thing at some point I think is this 5 or 6 in the last 18 months, 2 years?
Yeah, well, he missed that whole season, not last year, but the year before, due to the whole concussion issues.
Because he got whacked in NBL 1, right?
Right.
Like, so I know he'd be at least 4 or 5 over the last 2 years. So that's when it's kind of like the tap on the shoulder, like, mate, like, you got to be careful. And he, credit to him, he can't play any other way. We spoke about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago. It's like, if you tell Ely, like, hey, mate, protect your head a little bit, like, don't get on the loose balls and that's his game's gone.
Yeah.
That's what makes him so special. He's up and in, he's an agitator, he's annoying, he's physical, hold, grab, loose ball, tip it away from you, dive on it, get on the floor. Like, if he can't do that, you're not having him out there to be a shooter or having him out there to be a space scorer, right? So it hurts them a little bit. CG, I think, will remain. I mean, he's the face of that place, and will continue to be. But yeah, they're in a big roster revamp. You know, Jack White, just a yo-yo of a finals for him. Had some really good games and some really bad games. I think his thing is just getting to that free throw line in the off season. As a guy who was historically not a great free throw shooter, I could see that was the issue for him. He lost a lot of his aggressiveness because I think he did not want to get to the line and get fouled. And that's a hard spot to be in. I've been there. You know what? When you do sports psych stuff and talk to people about it, they're like, the first step is wanting to get back there. And that's the hardest thing sometimes. Big moment, thousands of fans booing you. I've just missed my last two. I let my teammates down. You think overthinking it and you don't want to get there. It's like the first step of not smoking, right? You got to not have that smoke, right? This is the opposite. You got to try to be like, you know what? I missed the last two, but at least I was putting pressure on the rim. I'm gonna do it again. And you could see he was floating on the perimeter a lot after that Perth series. Like, you know, even the great game that he had, most of it was from the perimeter.
Yeah.
And then when he was getting in the paint, it was kind of bobbly and it was kind of missing dunks and layups. So I think that's an issue they got to address. They probably do need some reinforcements, big man wise. I mean, Lowe was good from the regular season. I just don't think he's the answer in the playoffs. But I will say this: I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, they had a great season. Like, people are like, oh, United's done. They're all old and they're all this. It's like, I don't think you blow it up. I think you make some tweaks, and I don't think it's panic stations. I think they've proven that that core group. Look, you're going to be unlucky, and they've been unlucky two seasons in a row in a grand final that has gone the distance. One play here, one play there, and they win, right? So if you just get yourself in the position of being that top four, anything can happen.
And United have proven that, like, since the 17-18 season, that this core can get it done. And you look at that team, the turnover they've had with some of their key players. Look at Landau coming in and out. Then you look at JLA being an MVP candidate. Like, they have shown that in free agency that around this core they can then add complementary pieces to keep this thing going. I don't see United, this being the end of United or them not making the four next season. Their ownership group will go away, and the general manager this offseason and just kind of revamp their roster. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Whitey and Goulding for them will be their mainstays. I think those two return. I think White is contracted through to next year. Yeah, so I think you make a decision around Shea and what happens there with the concussion stuff, but they've invested well in young players as well. Like, they've had guys like Krebs and Flynn Cameron and all these guys sitting behind these guys, getting their reps, learning their ropes, kind of waiting. It's not like they just have a bunch of old guys with no youth coming in. I think as you see those guys develop over the next few years, and then you add, a superstar like, let's say Paddy Mills plays in the NBL, and all of a sudden he's playing for United, then all of a sudden United are the favourites again. All it takes is that one player, and they're right back where they started. So by no means is this the end for United. I think the bigger question is Illawarra, because a lot of those guys, other than Harvey and Froles, aren't contracted on to next year. So they got Froles.
Froles isn't.
Is he free agent?
Free agent.
So you got Hickey and you got Harvey. You kind of really...
And Hickey he's on one more year, right?
Yeah, I think he's got 2 more years. I think he signed a 3-year
just
deal.
Recently, yeah. This year? Ouch.
Yeah. So, which hurts him.
Yeah, they got to lose the players. Like, generally, once you win a championship, we experienced it with Sydney. We win, teams are going to poach. Like, we lost Wani because, Illawarra just paid way more than we could even afford to pay because of our cap. So we had to be like, shit, we hate losing you, but we can't pay. Great. We're happy for him. Like, you got 2-3x on what you made last season. Fantastic. And that's what's going to happen in Illawarra. You're going to get some teams coming in cheekily and being like, we know that 7th man right there. We know you can only pay him this much. We'll just give 1.5x of that. You can't match that. And if you do, it fucks your cap. Yeah. There's all those games that come into play, right? So it will be interesting to see who they can keep. Ulbrich,
Ulbrich, I think
he's got
signed
one more
last
year, right? He might be back too.
Yeah,
I think.
3 years as
Yeah,
well.
so he'll be back. So they'll have a little bit back. Frolling's an interesting one. It's like what not just them. What happens to him in free agency? You know, because he's going to be out for the year.
Yeah.
I've heard mixed rumors. I've heard it's a partial tear of his Achilles, and I've heard it's a full tear. Like I said last week, you want it to full tear is much better because it's longer. But the risky thing with an Achilles is if it's partial, there's always the chance of it fully snapping 6 months later after your rehab.
Right.
KD had a similar thing when he did his Achilles with us.
Yeah.
He had a partial, rehabbed it back, everything felt good, snapped, right? So I'm not a doctor, but I've been in the industry long enough to know orthos and people that are like, it's better just to clean snap it, suck up the rehab for 12 months, and then you're good, rather than these little small tears because it's just a ticking time bomb, right? What happens with him? Does he get picked up? I think he gets picked up, and a team just eats that first year. Maybe you backload that contract where you say we'll give you a 3-year deal, but we're just going to pay you 100 the first year, and then it goes up to 400, 500, 600, whatever he's worth.
Yeah,
that's going to be interesting to see. I'm kind of watching that space to see how a team figures that out, and if it is Illawarra, right? I think they found something with Ulbrich. Like I really do. I think Frolling's been great for him, but a different player in that system. He's a back to the basket. He's not great in handoffs. He's not. I think Ulbrich's better defensively, and Ulbrich's just more mobile, right? Do they have confidence in Ulbrich being a big minute player? That's the question now for Ulbrich, where I think Tatum probably lacked confidence at times of having him being a huge minute player for him.
Yeah.
He just proved in the finals that he can do it with a bit of discipline. So it will be interesting to see what direction they go. Peatling's a free agent as well, so a couple of their big days will be gone. What they do there and who they bring back, I agree. Both these teams, it's going to be interesting to see how things develop, and I think both the teams are going to see some new players on their roster, or at least half their roster. I think is going to be turned over.
And anyone that follows the NBL knows that every year the top four can just look completely different to last year's top four just because of the turnaround with most of these teams. Like we could see Jackies emerge again like next year. Who knows what happens with Perth and Cotton? You know, I think you guys, the Kings, are always in the discussion for this stuff. So, like, way too early to tell, but it will be a very interesting offseason. I think one of the more interesting ones in the next few years because it feels like the league's pretty wide open in terms
it's
of
close.
who can
That's
have
what you want.
it. Yeah.
I think really like Southeast Melbourne's bounced back. From, New Zealand just changed ownership groups, which we'll talk about in a second. Cairns, they always do well with imports. If they stayed healthy this season, they would have been somewhat in the mix. I doubt they make the 4, but maybe they're a 5-6 seed. Like, there's a lot going on. A lot of teams that, Adelaide was super talented. They couldn't get over the line. So it was really competitive. And this was one of the best seasons, I think, in a long, long time since I've supported the NBL and been involved with it, where it was week to week. You didn't know who to tip, what to expect. And there was a lot of changes, a lot of momentum swings. United were top of the ladder, then they fell down. And then Illawarra, top of the ladder for the rest of the season. And then they had a bit of a slip up towards the end at times. So a lot going on, and that's what makes it fun. But New Zealand did sell for $35 million to a local businessman there in New Zealand. Rumoured to have already culled a bunch of their staff, have been told to move on. So it will be interesting to see where they go, what direction they go. I think some of their roster changes or tweaks this season. Don't know if they were good, but it was what it was. They started off really well and then ended up down towards the toilet bowl at the bottom of the table. So hopefully there's some changes there, and you like to see that it's gone to a local businessman. And just we did skip over the MVP with Delhi. Let's talk about that really quick. Yeah. So controversial, and you hate to see such a great grand final series go from what it was to that. Everyone's going to say the system's flawed, and it is. The system is definitely flawed. I hope the NBL fix this today, not tomorrow. It needs to be fixed. The voting, to me, what I found was there was 5 panelists that all got 6 votes. 3 votes for the best player, 2 votes, 1 vote. 5 panelists every game. What I was noticing was when United lost, they still had a lot of their players poll votes. When Illawarra lost, it was pretty much a clean sweep of votes for the United players. So that's what made it interesting to me. There are people out there that say, well, it should go to the best player, and I agree somewhat, but the best player needs to influence winning. And Delhi was phenomenal for 3.5 games, in my opinion. But you have to influence winning, and it should go to the winning player. Now, the only spanner in the works, I would say, is if someone averaged in the NBL 20-10-10 on a losing team, maybe you have a discussion about it. It goes to 5 games, they lose on the buzzer, it's a close series. But I think this, Will Hickey, to me, was clear. I tweeted before the game, Illawarra win, Will Hickey's MVP, United win, Delhi's MVP. No one has any problem with that. Delhi gets the award, walks up and does what I think most people with half a basketball brain would have done, is like, we're pissed we lost, and I'm getting like a consolation MVP. I don't want this. I don't deserve it. My team didn't win. And that's what makes Delhi such a warrior. He understands that and goes and gives the trophy to Hickey, who did deserve it. I hope they can't change it in the record book, so I don't think they will. Hope the NBL rectifies this, because it's just not right. I don't know how you do it. Maybe you get an extra vote. If you've got 3 votes and your team won, it goes to a 4. I don't know. Maybe that's the solution. And if you're on the losing team and you get 2 votes, it just stays at 2. You don't get a bonus point for the win. We have to emphasize winning. And I think in today's society, everyone gets a trophy and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying Delhi had a phenomenal series. Not saying everyone gets a trophy in that context, but we want to instill that if you're part of the winning team, that team has the MVP. This is different from the regular season MVP. Like the regular season MVP, you can give the MVP to guys that, like Bryce, like they weren't first, but Perth aren't in that spot without him, right?
Right.
A team that was previous season, they was 8th or 9th or 7th, and then all of a sudden they get a player, has a phenomenal year, and they get to 2nd, 3rd, probably an MVP candidate, right? That's different in the regular season. In a final season, in a final series, it has to affect winning. And I think Delhi did the right thing. It was just a bit of a, Illawarra fans, right? People said they shouldn't boo, but I think I would have been pretty pissed if I was an Illawarra fan listening to that as well. And I think Delhi just handled it like a pro, just did what he had to do. It's an iconic moment that will live forever. And well done, Delhi.
I think at the core of it, and to your point about regular season versus finals, I think it's the most valuable player. I think it gets lost somewhere in there when these guys are voting. I think they get caught up in these moments in these games, or storylines or narratives. I think at the end of the day, if you look at the Illawarra team and you look at the series as a whole, the most valuable player on the court from game 1 to 5 was Dave Hickey. Yeah. And I don't think anyone would argue that. So the fact that after these games and these losses that these guys are getting caught up in narratives of like Delhi did this a game ago, so this game we need to give him a point. Like he should at least get a 3rd place vote here, or whatever the case may be. I think it's the same in the NBA, and it's the same in a lot of these leagues. Like these people just get caught up in narratives or stories or whatever, and just don't.
We're human.
Yeah,
everyone's
right?
human, right? Like
you just miss the facts.
Yeah.
Like if you look at it just from an eye test, if you look at it statistically, like Davo was clearly the most valuable player in that series at the end of game 5. I think if you poll it at the end of game 3, game 4, you make a case.
Yeah. And there has to be something said on the performance that he had in a closeout game, that if they lose game 4,
exactly right.
And game 5, that you got to give a bit more. But it's, Olgun tweeted, sorry, it's the system. Like this is how we're told to vote, and I get that to an extent. I still think that it was a bit conflated to when Melbourne lost, they still polled better than when Illawarra lost for the most part, except for in game 5. But I think that's what affected it a little bit. But it is tough on the voters because they're just in a silly system. But it needs to be changed. And I just hope the NBL, I don't know if that, I was trying to find out, I was asking people, how long has this voting system been in? Has this been like pre-Larry purchase of NBL? So now the NBL can say, oh, it's B8, we're going to change it, we're the heroes? Or has this come in after that and that now they probably can't because it's their system, they implement it? I'm trying to find out when it came in. I don't know how long it's been in, but it needs to change. It's not good. It shouldn't happen. And I hope they fix it. I hope they fix it because it's going to come up close to this again. 5-game series. Not every series is as simple as a 3-0 or a 3-1. They generally go on the distance. So yeah, just smart and a bit of controversy, but I think Delhi handled it like a gun. See you all in 2 weeks' time.